Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to be talking about my personal experience with my North Node going through my first house in Leo and the South Node going through the seventh house in Aquarius. Please keep in mind this is from a whole signs perspective. I do have another video from Placidus perspective. I'm not going to be moving forward doing Placidus perspective videos, but I do think it's really interesting to look at them, and I often do look at both. But I'm not going to post both because I know how confusing that can be for you guys. I was initially trained with Placidus, and as I continued my training, I realized I actually like to work with whole signs better. So if that's confusing, I apologize for that. But moving forward, we won't be doing that anymore. The other little note I want to make is please keep in mind that there were all sorts of other transits happening at this time, and then I have my own personal chart that has its own transits. So this does not mean you will experience this. Your experience could be very different than mine. So, from my calculations, the North Node was going through my first house beginning around May 8th, 2017, all through November 5th, 2018. This was one of those transits where I really felt it. You know, some of these transits I look back and I'm like, what happened? Like, did anything in those categories happen? And I really have to think. This one was not that. It was very clear what was happening. And to summarize it and, to just get to the point, I let go of a lot of friendships that no longer served me. And when I say a lot, I mean like all of them. So it was difficult. So I had just moved from Canada to the US, and that alone was going to shift your friendships. In some ways, some of my friends' friendship shifted and we got closer. Well, I thought it was closer. And then other ones, we started to drift, which is inevitable. Some of my friends would come visit me, but what I started noticing is that I actually felt lonelier when they were visiting, and that's just an awful feeling if you've ever experienced feeling lonely when you're with someone. And it took me a while to figure out what was happening because no one ever teaches you that sometimes you just grow out of friendships. We kind of have this, well, at least I did, this belief that they're going to last forever. And I started to literally physically get bought, like maybe this is that first house energy, the North Node, like physical discomfort around these people. Like when they would text me, when they would visit me, I remember one of my friends visiting me, and the whole time I had like IBS symptoms, and I don't even have IBS. Like my body was screaming, like this does not serve us anymore. Um, I had just grown apart from these people. Again, I don't want to say anything negative about anyone or like I'm above them, but my personal experience was that I was evolving and I wanted to talk about interesting things like concepts and ideas, not people. And that's not what I perceived them to want to do. And they were very into social media and posting, and they would come visit me, and I didn't feel like it was actually to visit me. I thought it was to just brag about your trip and pose, and I felt more like a photographer than a friend, and it just got really uncomfortable. And I don't know how to break up with a friend. It's really, really hard. No one ever taught me how to do that. And so I started to kind of slowly fade from some, and in some cases I had to really just cut someone out, and I'll get to that one in a minute. In terms of that North Node in the first, I was very focused on my physical body. I was very focused on working out. That was kind of like the thing I looked forward to every day. I was really growing muscles in the gym, and I was working with a trainer, and I really loved it. I was also focused on what I was fueling my body with, but very focused on my personal body. Probably not in the healthiest of ways, but that was that. In terms of that fifth house, or sorry, not fifth house, but that Leo energy, which is connected to the fifth house, I was building a website for my tarot, quote unquote business. It's not like, I don't consider it a business, it's just a hobby. And I was practicing the tarot and really just diving into hobbies and like what I wanted. So I was practicing being more selfish because by nature, I tend to put other people's needs first. And I do have a natal south node in Libra, and so I was being really selfish, which was needed, and letting go of all these friends that did not serve me. Um, it's interesting that I randomly screenshotted around September, which is when Mars was touring that seventh house with that south node, and that was a really difficult month. I remember it was so positive in other ways, and unrelated to the nodes. But me and my partner had just bought our first home, and I felt great. I felt amazing. And this turmoil was going on with these friends, and I had already had to literally cut a friend out who was quite verbally abusive. And it got to the point where my anxiety was just too high. And I was talking to my mentor, and he said something to me that just made me realize, like, what am I doing? And I just cut her out. I was like, I can't. I had suggested that we take time apart, and that's when I got like rage, and I just knew this was not something I want anymore. It would have been nice if we could have had a more amicable conversation, but sometimes you do have to cut people out to protect yourself, and that's what I learned. I also learned that you can't really be friends with some people in the group and not with others. It doesn't really work like that, and they gossip. And so there was this big situation that happened in September where, again, this is my perception because I don't want to act like I'm a victim. I'm definitely not. But my perception was that person was mad and wanted to make me hurt. And so they somehow got everyone against me. And I was getting like, my phone was blowing up with stuff. And it was just like, oy. So that's that Mars energy, right? Like I felt like the aggression. I felt I was being like attacked. I felt like just a battle. I felt like I was in a battle. And that's when I just said, I can't be friends with this group of women anymore. This is just never going to work. And I ended up having to just cut the rest that were left over out, and fell into a depression because I just had lost all my friends. And I didn't know if I was the problem. I didn't know if I could have done anything different. I didn't know if I was the bad person. I mean, when everyone's kind of gaslighting you, you start to think you are crazy. And so I went into therapy, and that's when I learned from my psychologist at the time, who was so wonderful, that because of my upbringing, I was more inclined to recreate these dynamics in friendships and in partners. Now, with partners, I had leveled up. I had kissed a lot of frogs, and now I had found my great partner, but I hadn't done that lesson with friends. And so I had to cut all these people out. And it's really interesting looking from a Placidus perspective, because from a Placidus perspective, this North Node would have been in that 12th house, and you can check out that video. So, and I was lonely. I was going through, I literally was depressed. I cried a lot. Like it was awful. But it was so needed, because I learned how to know what is a healthy friendship and what is not. I learned what emotional safety feels like in a friendship, which I had, I don't want to say never, because I had other friends back home that were, but this group of women that I was connected with, I had never felt emotionally safe, and I didn't even know what that felt like. And so I learned what that felt like, and now my friends are amazing. So if anyone goes through this experience with friends, please know I do believe it gets better. You kind of have to clean out, the things that no longer work, and kind of rebuild. And that's exactly what I did. And so now my friends are wonderful. They're emotionally safe. They're emotionally healthy. They respect boundaries, which, wow, that's amazing. That's a great feeling when your friends respect, who you are and what your no's are. So that was my experience. I don't actually think anything happened with my husband at the time. Like, some people would look at this and be like, oh my gosh, my husband's gonna leave, or I have to break up with my partner. And no, nothing. It had nothing to do with him. It had to do with friendships. So that was my personal experience. I know it was a little long. Please share your personal experiences. And oh, one last thing I want to say, looking at that Leo Aquarius energy. So Leo is about the heart and feelings. I mean, to me anyways, that's how I interpret it. And Aquarius is more cerebral and logic. And I had to really follow my heart here. And that was hard, because logically I was like, well, I've been friends with these people for so long. Should I work harder? Am I do I need, I was very much in my head, and I really had to just get out of that and follow something deeper than that. So that's the last thing I want to say. Anywho, please feel free to share your personal experiences or any comments or questions. I think that's about all I can say about that transit, and stay tuned for some more videos.